Um, on Friday, June 26th, and got a very interesting show tonight. With me, I have my producer, Swami. And how are you, sir?
I'm doing better than average. Namaste and blessings. This Swami welcomes you, and that's everyone, whether you are listening live in the Revolution Radio archives or on Gordon's YouTube channel. The Swami welcomes you with great love and great respect from the heart of all.
Now, you've been doing a great job with that YouTube channel, I must say. I'm quite proud of you. It's all your work and your responsibility, and I love you for it.
Thank you very much.
And we have a really exciting guest tonight, Conrad, who is online now, but we're going to get back to him in a minute. But how are you doing, Conrad? You ready?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Glad to be on the show.
Good. Well, he's calling from North Dakota, and believe it or not, my wife Janet, who's never awake during any of my shows, woke up just before the show started to tell me she had a dream that Poleshift is really coming, and even people who can't put that into words are feeling the pressure from it. So it just woke her right up out of a deep, deep sleep. So anyway, this is the first hour of a 2-hour show, and this is listener-supported radio. So you shall, and shame on you if you don't, you must donate money to Revolution Radio. And you do that by going to freedomslips.com, and about a third of the way down on the right, there's a box that you can click on to get into a PayPal or your Visa or MasterCard, debit or credit card to make a donation. You can donate as little as $1. If you're some kind of cheapskate, you can donate a nickel, I guess. I don't know. I never tried that. But the thing is why would you only donate $1? If you're listening to this show and you're getting something out of it, you really ought to be contributing, because this is not free. All of us are on this broadcast tonight, and every night on all the shows, all 70 of them a week, are all doing it for free. All we're asking for is the money to maintain the internet connection and the equipment. So, I mean, you can't have a more reasonable budget. If you hired an auditor and you spent thousands of dollars to audit where all the money goes, there's hardly any money. And you'd spend more on the auditor if you just gave it to the station. We'd be a lot better off. So now if you donate $100, you get 35,000 non-GMO seeds. Now, if you've been listening to me at all, you know how important that is to be able to grow food after Poleshift. And I'll bet you don't have any non-GMO seeds, because most people don't. They're all been modified and hybridized. And when you plant them and you collect the seeds at the end of the growing season and you plant them next year, you get nothing. Nothing. Mutants, strange things. Usually you don't get anything, but if you get something, it's something like from another world, like it's the Twilight Zone. But it's not food. These are 35,000 non-GMO seeds in a freezer pack that will last 25 years. So you keep it in the freezer, and when the grid goes down, which might even be before Christmas this year, when it goes down, you take them out and you keep them in a cool place. And then the next growing season, you're ready to eat something after 60 to 120 days. Now, if you only want to donate $50, well, with the 100, you also get a DVD disc with 900 survival documents on it, and it's invaluable. I know most of you don't have a clue how to can food or make a fire or build a shelter or keep warm in the winter, keep dry. I mean, these are things you're not going to learn in your mother's basement or on your couch or God knows where you are. But you're probably not in a club, because how could you listen to the show and still listen to loud music? I don't know where you are, but I can guarantee the majority you'll have no clue how to survive on your own. So if you donate $50, you get a thumb drive with the 900 survival documents. So you don't get the 35,000 non-GMO seeds, but you get the thumb drive and you get the information, which you're going to need. Now, if you're smart, you've got a solar panel and you can charge up your battery for your computer, and you can plug the thumb drive in and you can read the survival documents. If you're really smart, you will get these 900 documents and read them now. So, excuse me. It was funny. We went to a store, the hardware store, and there was a woman doubled over the counter coughing. And I said, let me guess, a sinus bronchial infection. She goes, yeah, how'd you know? And I said, well, because we've had it for 12 weeks. She goes, well, I've had it for 5 weeks. I said, did you go get antibiotics? She said, yes. I said, did they work? She goes, no. And I said, well, that's what we did. And I said, did they tell you that a lot of people have that? And she said, that's exactly what the doctor said. They can't understand why all these people have this. So I don't know what's going on. My next step is to make huge containers of colloidal silver and just drink that, because maybe it's a fungus and you can't treat a virus, and the antibiotics aren't working on the bacteria. So what's the next step here? So very frustrating to always be coughing when you don't wish to be, especially if you're on a radio show. Now, I have been doing something the last couple of weeks, which I'm going to continue. And I explained that the element of doubt is the fact that when some people see a flying saucer, other people see swamp gas, or they're accused of being drunk or drugged or delusional. Maybe they mixed up Venus with Jupiter, and maybe it was car headlights reflecting off the clouds. There's always this element of doubt, it's called, where the skeptics can be satisfied that there wasn't a flying saucer. Can you imagine people who would be satisfied that there wasn't a flying saucer? That is so far out of my realm, I can't even picture it. So, but anyway, the Council of Worlds, this is what my conversations with Nancy Leader of Zeta Talk, my conversations are, the Council of Worlds says that 50% of the world now believes there are extraterrestrials. So if we make a call and enough people call, then the Council of Worlds can actually eliminate the element of doubt. And that means that when people see a flying saucer, there won't be any way to say it was swamp gas, that it was a delusion, that people were drunk. And in 1988, I had a vision at Poleshift that the whole sky was like polka dots overhead, flying saucers every mile, just sitting there, majestic in their beauty, radiating unconditional love and spirituality. And it struck me so strongly that I even did an acrylic painting of it. I have no idea where that is, but I tell you this, I never throw anything out. It's just got too much stuff. A lot of it's in boxes. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we are going to make the call to the Council of Worlds, and hopefully if enough people follow my lead and go along with this, we will get a majority eventually, maybe not tomorrow, but that will allow the unselfish ETs to be seen. Now, you realize why the selfish ETs made a deal with the government. And the ETs are so respectful of planets that if the government says, no, you're not going to show yourself if you're unselfish, then can you imagine saying that? Well, that's what they've said. So if the government say that, they're going to respect it. But now if enough people ask, so this is what I want you to do, is repeat after me. You can do it when you're listening in the archives, or you can go to my YouTube channel. Thank you, Swami. And you can do this again yourself. You can do it all day long. You can tell other people to do it. I call upon the Council of Worlds to eliminate the element of doubt. And that's what we're referring to. I call upon the Council of Worlds to eliminate the element of doubt. And who knows, if enough people do that, then the Council of Worlds can do that, can overcome what the governments wish without incurring bad karma. Because you can't just go to a planet and start messing around with stuff without incurring karma. So I think that's very important. I'm going to start every show with it. Sorry, I have to explain it. Now, last week we had a guest on who I've known for 3 years. I've met once. Janet and I met her, and I thought that she would be inspirational and hopeful, and instead I find that a lot of what she said created extreme fear. And so I'm not putting that show on the YouTube channel, because I think anyone that listens to that show again, and if you heard the show last week, you probably have the you-know-what scared out of you. So I apologize for putting her on. I had no idea that she was going to be doing that. She is an insightful person, and she does have some healing abilities, but I feel that she's developed this messianic complex where she herself is going to save the planet, which is good. I don't mind anybody trying to lend a hand, but this is our planet, and her attitude really troubled me the next morning, and I woke up and I talked to my producer, and we agreed that a lot of what she said was very troubling. So she's free to continue saying that all she likes, but not on my show, and I will not be having her back. I said I would have her back on the third Friday of July, and I won't be doing that. Sorry. Now, I've done something I've never been done before. Janet and I did it today, and that is we opened up a post office box that people can write to me. Well, holy mackerel, you couldn't do that before. And there wasn't really any way to contact me except by finding my name on Skype or God knows what you would do. But anyway, so if you would like to write to Janet or me, this is the address that you can write to. It is P.O. Box 51. Now, that's pretty easy to remember, isn't it? 51. P.O. Box 51, Ellsworth, Maine. Ellsworth, Ellsworth, Maine, 04605. So, if you'd like to send us postcards, I'd love to see where the listeners are from, and I would put up a board and put postcards from listeners so we could see where you all are listening from. That would be fun. If you have a letter or a note, that's great. And if you'd like to donate for my siding fund, if you can believe it, we've lived in a house for 15 years with an exterior wall of chipboard covered with house wrap. Being on a mountaintop, the wind has just ripped it away. So after you donate to Revolution Radio, if you figure you like my show, you'd like to help me out, you're welcome to send a donation to P.O. Box 51, Ellsworth, Maine. But you don't have to send a donation. It's not any kind of a requirement. But if you feel sorry for us before Poleshift, you can. But anyway, we would love to get mail from the listeners, which we've never happened before, but might be a good time to start it. Now, I've been telling people to go take pictures of the sun, and this last week I took many pictures of the sun, and they're spectacular. I have all kinds of moon swirls. I've got shafts of light coming down, really unusual stuff. So I've been telling you, go take your camera and go take pictures. But if you don't want to do that and you want to see what other cameras have been getting, Swami's been going regularly to the site in Italy, the webcam. What's the name of that, Swami?
Giglio Campisi.
Giglio Campisi.
Yeah. It's a really long link address that I'm not going to read because no one would be able to copy it all down.
Exactly. But you can find this on poleshift.ning.com.
Right. There's one that says Nibiru Daily Pictures or Nibiru, something to that effect. But you'll find it on poleshift.ning.com. And this webcam is taking pictures every 10 minutes throughout the day. And in the period from approximately 6 p.m., which on their website is 1800 hours, to about 1830, there is a red pinkish object at approximately the 5 o'clock position below the sun as it is setting. And if there isn't heavy cloud cover, you'll see it. And it's always in the same place at the same time, and it's well worth your time investment.
Yeah, you've seen that too, Conrad, haven't you? Well, he might have muted his microphone, but would you say that's as spectacular and as easy to see as he says it is?
It is. You have to look at several pictures and you kind of get a feel for it. I mean, it's definitely all these colored pixels. That it's got to be something. And then after you've seen it week after week, you see enough that you kind of get you really can't miss it once you've been looking at it for
Right.
several days.
Right. So listen, you know, we can talk about this on the air all we want, but until you go out and see it with your own eyes, you know, it's like, well, maybe they're talking about something I'm not sure. But when you see it with your own eyes, there's a famous UFO movie called I Know What I Saw. You know, seeing is believing.
All right.
So let's see. And another little news item here. I had a good friend. Well, he wasn't really a good friend, but I met him in 1993 when he was a fisherman, and I was working on a fish pier, and I think he was using his lobster boat to take out divers for sea urchins, but he may have been a sea urchin diver himself. I'm sorry that I really don't remember that well, but I've known him since 1993, and he never shaved his mustache or his beard or cut his hair, and he was a big bear of a man. And every time that Janet and I saw him, he would say, "How you doing, Gordon?" "Hi, Janet." It was very nice, and we were very nice to him. And there was a sort of a mutual respect. He was hardworking. We were hardworking. So about a year ago, he bought a truck body and put it in front of a contractor's yard on the highway and put up signs that he was selling seafood. Now, he had been selling shrimp during the winter and stuff. So we would stop in and talk to him, and he was living with his girlfriend, and he was also lobster fishing. And I even called him 2 weeks ago, and I found out that this week, that I didn't know this before, he lived in a cabin in the woods on a 3.5-mile dirt road, and he had his nephew and his nephew's wife living on the same property. And Randy's Rottweiler came over and let them know something was wrong, and they ran over to the cabin, and sure enough, there was Randy on the floor, and he had a brain aneurysm. And they don't know whether he got the aneurysm and then fell, or whether he fell and that caused the aneurysm. But anyway, by the time they took him to the hospital, they realized he was brain dead, which was really a shame. He was 61 years old. We're going to a potluck memorial at a boatyard, believe it or not, on July 3rd. But anyway, I was talking to his nephew's wife, and she said something that really touched me deeply, and that was that he had donated his organs, and so they kept him alive in order to take things out of his body that would save other people's lives. And she told me today, and I just broke up when I heard it. She said, and he was not a rich man. I mean, he was like day to day. If he made some more money, then he could buy some more gas and get some more food. And that's sort of how Janet and I were living. You know, picking up jobs wherever you could get it to make some money. And I was doing granite and stonework, which is how I hurt my hips. But Randy was still doing fishing. And the niece said that his body, the parts of his body that they took out, already saved 3 other lives. And then she added, and this is the part that really touches me. She goes, he gave more than he had. And I just, when I heard that, I just couldn't stop crying. So I was touched deeply. So I want to say to Randy, and now he's dead, and they've cremated him, and so he's on the other side. I want to say, God bless you, Randy, and I hope everything goes well for you. But I thought that was really something to say, that he gave more than he had. And, you know, he didn't have much, but he saved 3 other lives. I mean, who can say that? So now I was talking to Nancy today, and she took a question about the Barents Sea, and the Zetas answered it. Yes, they have the sunrise is much brighter at all the wrong times. It's later in the day, earlier. The sunrise is earlier in the morning, and the sunset's later in the day than it should be in the Barents Sea. I guess that's Sweden. And then there was another question that I guess Alex Jones and a lot of people have been commenting on, the movement of all this military material all over the country. And people are just seeing trucks and trains loaded with all kinds of stuff. And so the Zetas answered it, and the answer is that truck drivers are being paid extra to move military equipment at night across the country. And the selfish people, the billionaires, are doing everything they can to stir up trouble to force Obama to declare martial law to protect their estates. And Obama has no intention of doing that and will not be doing that. So that was interesting. And then somebody asked about this planet, I guess it's GJ 436b. There's a big article on space.com, and NASA has an article about it, that they discovered a planet with a tail. And somebody wanted to know if that was creeping disclosure. So that's interesting, because years ago, Nancy said Nibiru was going to come back through the solar system. It was going to be called Planet X, and it was out in space, and it was coming into our solar system. Well, everyone laughed at her. Ah, ha, ha, there's no such thing as rogue planets. You live in La La Land, and you don't know anything about anything. And sure enough, they discovered, I guess at this point, they've discovered about a dozen rogue planets that are traveling through space, not attached to solar systems. So in a sense, by talking about rogue planets, they're pre-disclosing Planet X, because, you know, if a planet can't go through space, then what the hell is it doing there? But if planets do go through space on their own, then that explains why this one would be here. So in a sense, that's a rolling disclosure. It's very slow. It's sort of like giving you the underpinnings to form your belief that this is true. Of course, you can always go outside the door during the day and take a picture of the sun. You can look at other people's pictures of the sun, but, you know, that isn't good enough for you, and you like that Harvard-educated, scientific government explanations of things. Now you have the fact that they found a planet with a tail. Well, of course, we've been talking about the tail of Planet X. It's a twin-stranded tail with lots of moons and dust. And people are like, well, how could a planet have a tail? Well, all the excitement this week is they found a planet that's much larger than Earth, but it's closer to its sun than Mercury is to our sun. And the sun that it's close to is not a sun like ours. It's a red dwarf. So, but the heating is enough to evaporate and vaporize all these gases in the atmosphere. And as this planet goes around its red dwarf star, it has, of all things, a tail. So this is the first time that NASA has mentioned a planet with a tail, which again creates more underpinnings to believe them when they finally get around to it at their slow, interminably slow pace to announce Planet X is in the solar system, which you can go out the door and look for tomorrow, darling. I'm not kidding. So anyway, that's the news that I wanted to discuss. And welcome to the show, Conrad.
Thank you.
Now, Conrad is you talk about being in 1/4% of the world, or 1/10 of 1/4 of 1%, or 100th of 100th of 100th of 1% of the world. Conrad is such a person. He not only was reading Zeta Talk back in the 90s, but he noticed they were saying where it was coming from, the direction it was traveling in, and they constantly updated their website to say where it was. And guess what? Conrad is an amateur astronomer, and he was living in Hawaii, I think, at the time. You can correct me. And he went out, and it took him hours to do it, but he saw Planet X before it came into the solar system. And I guess that was your holy cow moment, right, Conrad?
Yeah, it's like a lot of information on things that are coming up is what I would use the term ephemeral. You can't really grab onto it, you know what I mean? Uh-huh. So here's a series of other amateur astronomers who are citing these things, led up by a guy named Steve Havas. And he's just, another guy with a telescope, basically, But he spent the time to actually look at those coordinates, and he found it. And this was as it was traveling through the outer solar system coming in.
What year was that?
That was the year 2000. It basically Nancy's big date was May 15th, 2001, supposedly, for the planet to come into the solar system. So in the months before, for about a year before, it was visible from a modest-sized telescope. Now, I saw it through an 8-inch telescope, which basically I borrowed from the Children's Museum on Kauai and took it up the mountain, where once you start up the mountain, there are no streetlights. I mean, streetlights are like the enemy of viewing. You know, if you're in a city, you really can't see too much with a lot of streetlights. So going up this mountain, I used to go up to the first or second turnout. You know, it's like a switchback road going up to 3,500 feet. And over about 2.5 hour time, I literally ripped the page out of Sky and Telescope magazine for the month, because every month they print the sky chart, you know, what's visible, looking. So I just ripped it out, and then I used a program on the internet that will print out a section of sky, and I had the coordinates. It's very unusual looking for something, for somebody to give you the coordinates. I mean, that was the only time I've ever known of an unknown object where somebody has coordinates on it. I mean, there's books printed on where Venus is going to be at a certain time or where Mars is going to be at a certain time, but so it was. It's like a slam dunk if they tell you how high it is up in the sky and which direction looking around in a circle. Now, you got to actually take into consideration that the Earth turns and tilts, right? So, but once you know, once you you kind of like found Polaris and then you found the major constellations around it, then you start looking through the little eyepiece, and you get the general vicinity, and then you go to the big eyepiece where you really get in close and personal. And lo and behold, there was a double image of it. There was a white image and a red image of the same thing, because apparently, well, it's true, at sunset the sun looks bigger, or at sunrise too, because it's going through more atmosphere and it looks larger. So if you're looking at something that has white, the red light bends, so you'll have a red image of it, and then also very close to that a white image. So I was seeing two images. Now the red is harder to see than white for your eye, because it's red, but it's more towards the infrared, you know. But
well, now you're doing this in the night sky, because it hadn't yet come close to the sun and come around the sun and then stop like it is now. So this is on its approach from the constellation Orion,
right? And the sky chart, there was like this swooping S curve kind of thing, because our planet, of course, is going around the sun, you know, so it doesn't, you would think it'd be a straight line, something come in. It's going straight, but how we see it is more of an S curve. But anyway, all the this chart that Nancy was putting out had the different coordinates for each week. Each week it's changed significantly enough to be another set of coordinates, fairly close, but another spot to look. So basically, you know, we saw it, and it moved from day to day, week to week. I mean, I only watched it over a few weeks, but the thing is, it was actually moving. See, a planet moves in the sky different than a star. Right. A star is basically always going around, as we go around the sun, it's always in the same constellation. A planet, however, moves in front of the star field, and even within a few hours, you can see it moving across the sky.
Right, Glenn, I'll give you an example. The sky itself moves 1 degree every 4 minutes, but yet the moon will move against the field of the stars 1 degree every 2 hours.
Right, exactly. So, you know, everything's relative, but that was the aha moment, I guess. That's a correct description of it, because then once I'd spotted it, looked at it through a telescope, there was something real, and it was coming in. And
what did it look like, by the way?
It looked like a big fuzzy white dot and then a big fuzzy red dot, because it's coming
were they a little bit separated, like there was a slight color separation in the two images?
Quite a good separation, you know, like 1/10 of 1 degree, basically. I mean, it's within the eyepiece, it's in the same eyepiece, but I mean, if you stuck your hand out, it would look a half an inch farther over.
Wow.
And the white is obvious, where I was starting to say before. With the red image, what you got to do is look a little bit to the side, because the center of your eye doesn't see very much red, especially infrared. But if you look over to your side, if you have ever been in a movie theater and they have that red light on the exit sign, after a few minutes you'll stop picking it up. But when you first go in there, or if you're looking around from the side of your eye, you can't miss that red.
The peripheral vision.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's when I mean, I was taking in Zeta Talk for several years before that, but that's when I started going, oh well, I need to decide where I want to be for Poleshift. So I had to Excel on my computer, which I hardly use Excel spreadsheets, but you can use it the first time, and it's, you figure it out within a few minutes. And so I just put all the different things that were under safety and where you can grow food and where hurricanes don't come, and away from a large city, but enough people that you have neighbors, and all of these things. So I had 32 items.
Like tidal waves.
Yeah, no tidal waves will get there. No bridges you got to go across to get to your town. All of that stuff. And the very best spot in the country turned out to be also the center of the North American continent. If you take North America, the center of that is a little town called Rugby, which is like 18 miles south of here. So basically, the spot that popped for me was right in the center of the continent.
In North Dakota.
North Dakota. One important thing was altitude. I wanted to be at least 2,000 feet, and we're like 2,200 feet here. Just because I want to be in an area where the water runs it can come through, but I want it to keep going. You know what I mean? I don't want to be in a valley where water's going to pool. Exactly. And I wanted someplace that had, this wasn't in my chart, but another thing that became obviously important, I wanted a town that had gravity flow septic sewage system for the town. In other words, there's nothing about this system that has anything to do with pumping stations. I got to
tell you,
what goes downhill.
Conrad, I worked at Bolton Valley Ski Area in 1977 while I was waiting for the job with the Environmental Board of the state of Vermont, and I could not believe that place. They had like the ski condominiums, and they were 2x4 walls heated with electricity, and on the side of a mountain 3,500 feet up. Then they had the tennis condos, same thing. Then they had altogether like 4 or 5 condominium complexes, and you go up there and you buy a condo or you rent one, and then you go skiing. Well, guess what? The state gave them a place to treat all their sewage and dump it on the other side of the mountain. So they pumped every one of, 2,000 condominiums. They pumped it uphill a mile before it went over the top of the mountain. So guess what happened when there was a power failure? 1 mile of sewage came back and flooded 2,000 condos.
Oh, that sounds like great planning.
Well, and also, guess what? There was no heat.
Yeah, and a very great demonstration of one of the 3 rules of plumbing is it goes downhill.
Right.
Even if you're pumping it uphill, it'll come back at you.
Now, listen, I think you've established that you are quite interested in astronomy, and that you are very detailed in your planning and a sort of an exacting person. There's a phrase for that I won't use, but anyway, there's been a lot of interest in several things. First of all, this week on Mars, their Curiosity rover in the Gale crater photographed a truncated pyramid, and I'd like you to comment on that. And then NASA released another closer image of the rotating asteroid Ceres, and I wish you would discuss both of those before we get back to your plans for Poleshift.
Yeah. Let's this what you're calling a truncated pyramid, it's not the top that's cut off. The top is what's showing. And on the front side, the sand is lower, and so you see it like the front almost looks rounder, but what it is, there's more sand blown out of the way on the front. And so what it looks like is it's a very large pyramid that's mostly all buried except for the top of it. And the top is about the size of a Volkswagen Bug, to get a comparison. And that's probably the capstone of the pyramid, but it is so completely straight line, it can't be anything but an artificial structure that's been built by some intelligent species. I mean, it's not a rock that looks a little bit like a pyramid. It is a pyramid.
I think that's why we sent the Curiosity rover into that crater, because it's 12,000 feet deep. And if the Anunnaki were kicked off of Earth before Jesus came, about 2,000 years ago, and that's where they went, then there would be all kinds of anomalies in the crater. And if you go back through the history on YouTube, where people have found anomalies in the pictures that have been sent back from the Curiosity rover, you'll see that that's the least of it. There are Anunnaki dolls, there's jewelry, there are drills, there are drill holes, there's communications towers, there's domes, there's other structures, there's skeletons of goats and sheep, and even apparently mice and birds and snakes have been seen.
Yeah, I like the live mouse that was actually moving.
Yeah, so
the pictures, he walked across the set.
So if you think this is a joke that the Anunnaki were here and they got evicted from Earth and they went to Mars, just go look at those anomalous pictures. I mean, they're very convincing, don't you think?
Yeah, you can even see where they were mining. That's what they were up there for, is mining of gold used in their atmosphere. If you powder gold fine enough, which it does very well, it reflects a tremendous amount of light. So they use that to keep the heat in and reflect the heat back down, apparently. But they were mining on the Earth in Africa, and they used a type of ground-penetrating radar, and it's the places they looked for this gold to mine it are all over. There's like 10,000 different spots of these, what people they call them cattle pens, but there's no gate. Hello, how do the cattle get in and out? There's sites to try and find gold. But anyway, the Anunnakis, actually areas where they were mining are, I mean, it looks like a mining operation on the Earth that you might see on Google Earth in the Rocky Mountains, where somebody was.
Like I've seen tons of pictures of open pit gold mines, and it looks like the same thing can be found in the different NASA pictures of the surface of Mars.
Yeah, and it's interesting, this pyramid, they only took one picture. If they took more pictures, they certainly didn't release them, because that's the only one that shows them. They took a whole series of pictures right of that area. And I think they just decided to get off that as soon as they saw it. By that time, that picture was already out. And they have been changing their policy. NASA has been releasing, having the attitude that they don't want to talk about it. But if people find things in their high-resolution photographs, which hundreds of people have and put them up on YouTube, that they just won't comment on it. But it's a form of gradual disclosure.
Right, and that's what the Zetas say. Nancy Lieder has said that many times and asked the Zetas, and that's their answer. This is a form of rolling disclosure of the presence of extraterrestrials. Yeah,
and of the presence of Nibiru.
Right, well, yeah, that's a But getting back to the extraterrestrials, let's move on to the mysterious asteroid Ceres, which has bright spots all over it, which you have explained are buildings that must be at least 400 feet long and maybe up to 100 feet high, well lit from the outside, that you can see in the pictures of Ceres. And now they've got a series of stills that they put together showing Ceres rotating. So what have you found interesting about that?
Well, besides the one largest lit up area, now I say a lit up area, this is 9 kilometers. So let's say 5.6 miles, 5.5 miles square. That's the largest light. And there's 8 other lights there. I'm calling them lights because if you did a diagonal across of let's say Las Vegas, right? You're talking about 3.5 miles, bottom left to top right.
Right.
This is almost twice as big. Las Vegas is 250 square miles. Okay, this is 450 square miles. So this is twice as big as Las Vegas. So it's a little bit more than some light reflecting off some snow. I mean, this is, and there's 8 different lights, and it looks like
this is the element of doubt. People can look at those pictures and go, well, that's ice. That's sunlight reflecting off the ice, case closed. But when you really study the shapes, which you have, and there are times when the shapes are silhouetted against the darkness of space, and you can see that they stick up, although most of them, I think you said, were in craters. There should be no element of doubt. There are extraterrestrial structures on there, and they're probably selfish ETs in the 3rd dimension.
Well, when you look at it next to the lights from Las Vegas taken from the same altitude of space, like on Google Earth at night, it looks so similar to the lights of Las Vegas. And lights anybody that's been to Las Vegas or even seen pictures of Las Vegas, that place is lit up like a Christmas tree. You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, some ice reflecting. See, the angle of incidence always equals the angle of reflection. That describes a mirror. It describes anything that reflects light. So, I mean, you're only going to see that light when you're like from the direction of the sun off, to a very narrow angle, right? Let's say. So
yeah, and these pictures are showing up with no angle of incidence because the sun isn't falling on that area, so there can't possibly be sunlight reflection.
Right, and the crater rim I estimate is about 200 feet tall. So if these things stick over, we're talking about 300 to 400 feet high buildings.
Mm.
That's a pretty big, whatever it is, they built it up,
Well, you got to figure that can't be the friendliest place to walk around outside. So they've got to create large structures with huge indoor spaces in order to be able to do whatever they're doing there. One thing of which would be to have a halfway base to somewhere else, a place to come and resupply or repair, and then also to have some sort of an enjoyment of life. Although if they're selfish ETs, I don't suppose they enjoy any part of life at all, but maybe they do. But you need those large spaces to build things, do mining, extract things, manufacture things. So that would explain why there would be such large structures.
And what are you going to make it out of? The silicon, right? Sand. Right. And so as you lit up the inside, the light would come through. It'd be like a big geodesic dome made out of plastic. Any light bulb, small light bulb on the inside would light up the whole dome.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing. And they probably got it lit up to, for working. And so it seemed like daylight. And you're not going to go walking around outside that thing without a full-blown spacesuit that's rated to work at minus 246 degrees.
Oh, my God.
That's mighty chilly.
Oh, my God. Yeah, but, I would...
when you're in a spacesuit doing an EVA, a walk outside the space station, one side of your space station towards the sun is like frying, and the other side away from the sun is freezing. And the spacesuits apparently are quite comfortable. I've never worn one, but it doesn't seem to negatively affect the astronauts. They're pretty thick and bulbous, but you need that protection. So if you're out there on Ceres, there's no atmosphere on Ceres, and it's cold as a witch's tit.
Oh, darling.
Is Janet still awake?
Yeah.
Great.
Don't forget the in a bronze bra part.
Well, that's okay. Some things are excusable. After all, this is not broadcast radio, is it, Swami?
No, sir.
Hopefully not.
Well, perhaps one little AM daytimer station in Kentucky. I don't know.
Oh, no. Well, FCC, please forgive this man. Bless him and forgive him.
Actually, I think that's one of the words that's included. You can say it.
I think so, too. Like you can say penis, vagina, but you can't say a lot of other things.
All right.
Okay. Now, so, I mean, that's really interesting that we have evidence of previous extraterrestrials on Mars. Nothing going on right now. But on Ceres, we probably have stuff that's active at this moment, wouldn't you say?
No, actually, I think there's a lot going on Mars right now, and I think it's underground.
Well,
We were hanging out on Mars, and most of the water and pretty much 90% of any remaining air is probably going to be abundant on farther down you go. And who knows what kind of...
Zeta said the Anunnaki washed all their gold, which gold is 20 times heavier than water, by sluicing it downward into caverns. And when they emptied the last of the briny oceans, brackish oceans, so they weren't really salty, but they weren't freshwater either. When they emptied the last of them, that changed the atmosphere. But it's just like that movie Total Recall, where you could come back and terraform Mars by pumping all that water back on the surface and bringing an atmosphere back.
Yeah, and absolutely. And water, I mean, all you got to do is distill it, even if it's briny and or even polluted, and you're going to get distilled drinking water. I don't drink filtered water. I drink distilled water. Right.
Well, now we're going to get back to how you decided when you did this spreadsheet. And this is the, I wanted you to talk about Mars and Ceres because we've mentioned these things before, but here you go with new evidence this week. So, or with Ceres, it was 2 weeks ago. But this thing where you came up with this spreadsheet, and when you narrowed it down, how did you choose your safe area for Poleshift? I mean, did you just assume that the center of the continent at 2,200 feet, and then you started looking around for a place that had down?
No, that was just that was one element. The other thing I did is I basically dissected the safe locations document for all 50 states.
Mm-hmm.
I considered staying in Hawaii. Actually, that was my second choice. But to be in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with no transportation, and unless you were the world's best thrower of fish nets, is what they use, a little 3-foot by 4-foot net to catch their fish.
I have one of those, by the way, and I can surely use it, and I know what to do, and I hope to use it. Catch bait fish, and I'm going to use those to catch the bigger fish.
Right, but Hawaii doesn't grow much food, almost none.
That's so surprising to me. I mean, I've talked to people who live in Hawaii, and they go, well, in my yard, I've got oranges and lemons, I've got limes, I've got mangoes, I've got papaya. That's food.
When they bought that property, it didn't have any of that. And last time I grew a citrus tree, it was really 5 years before I got anything respectable out of it for a crop. I'm growing apples now, and every other year you get a great harvest. The year in between you don't. And it takes avocados take like really 8 years,
Wow.
Mangoes, it takes a long time for a mango tree to get big. Papayas grow really fast.
Well, what do you mean by food? Don't they grow corn there, for instance?
Only seed in a very tiny plot to make seed for hybrids. There's no corn grown there. There's taro, which is a a disgusting plant that makes something that tastes exactly like wallpaper paste.
Yeah, I can imagine. And how about wild pigs? I mean, are there any other?
Plenty of wild pigs, but the best hunters in the world for wild pigs are the Hawaiians, and they're going to be gone a long time before I'll be up there finding any.
Right.
So the prospects aren't good there.
So what made you think that the center of the North American plate? I mean, for one thing, the projection of the new North Pole being the eastern tip of Brazil means that regardless of what North Dakota is now, after Poleshift, it should be a pretty nice place.
Oh, yeah, we're looking at just a little south of Austin, Texas for climate for here, which is not a bad place.
So the climate after Poleshift will be the same as the present Austin, Texas.
Yeah, or even just a little warmer. Probably just south of Brownsville, Texas. That's about the most southern spot. And that's if you go across, that's about what Miami is. Now, you're not right on the ocean, so it's going to be a little drier. But all your tropical plants, which grow in Hawaii or Florida or wherever, are growing good here. So we're just planting. We have flats of papayas that we planted out. And we're growing tropical plants in the new house that we're just moving into. And we're adding a sunroom, which is a big growing room with LED lights. And we're going to be growing all these plants. I mean, they have to be potted plants, But come Poleshift, we're going to have an awful lot of stuff. Guavas, we got 4 kinds of guavas. We got 10 kinds of seed for papayas. The time to get seed is now. It's very easy to get seed.
Oh,
you
yeah.
can go on eBay. Anything you type in that's a plant, there'll be 10 people there wanting to mail you seed for $1.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
This is, I think that, here you are, you realize there was truth to this whole thing about Poleshift and the apocalypse. And you saw it for yourself. And you made very scientific approach to the whole thing. You made a spreadsheet. You entered all these different factors, and you narrowed it down to North Dakota. So then what did you do? Fly there and drive around?
Yeah, we flew from Kauai in Hawaii through Phoenix and then on to Minneapolis. When we got to Minneapolis, my wife's father, which would be my father-in-law, was already in the area around Fargo, North Dakota, which is like, 4 hours drive from here. And the spot we pointed out was kind of center of the state, just below the Canada border. So we started driving, and we bought a pickup truck, a used pickup truck, and started driving around, the 3 of us. And when we came into this particular town that we live in now, we weren't in town 15 minutes before somebody gave us a free trailer if we just pay the lot rent to him. Because the previous tenant apparently just left his trailer there and owed rent. So the park owner was now the legal owner of the trailer. So he gave us the trailer, said, you can have the trailer, fix it up. It's huge, just pay the $50 a month lot rent.
Wow.
Which it doesn't get any quicker and easier to find a place. So we moved in, and within a half an hour later, we were unpacking the truck and putting our stuff inside.
Now, what year would you say this was?
That was 2001.
Okay, so you've been at your safe location for 14 years. Now, I've been at my safe location for 30 years, and I think it's critical to move to a place as early as possible to get to know what you're dealing with the local people.
That's true, but the time to move to your safe location is always the same exact time, and that's now.
Exactly. We can't emphasize that enough, can we?
No, it never changes. Wherever you are, you need to move now because, just growing food, right? Every year you learn some lesson of what doesn't work when you're growing. And we finally got to a fairly successful place, but, it's taken a while. We grow about 10 times as much food as we can eat. And up in North Dakota, there isn't a huge appreciation for organic food, which is what we grow. We don't use any chemicals. And we literally can't give it away. Even though people here eat everything we grow, they're just so entrained into going to the store and buying or opening a can, you know. But be that as it may, we have collected extra garden tools, you know, so we have like 4 or 5 of each kind. In case extra people are hungry and want to help grow food, we can sort of, you know, show them what to do. And we've also saved seed on everything we've grown. Everything we've grown, we open, we dehydrate it, but we save the seed.
Okay, we're going to come back in a few minutes for the second hour, and thank you, Conrad. This is really interesting. Well, this is Gordon James Gianninoto welcoming you back for the second hour of this show, Friday, June 26th, which will be listed as the Saturday show, June 27th, when you go to find it on my YouTube channel, courtesy of Swami, or in the archives. And that's because I'm on the East Coast, and my show starts at midnight, but it actually starts a few minutes after midnight, so I'm actually a Saturday morning show, I guess you could say. And I've got a wonderful guest, Conrad Zeiderveld, and I've got my wonderful producer, Swami Shivananda. And Swami,
yes, sir.
You're in the midst right now of going through this realization that you've got to move, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I have felt it for some time, but wasn't clearly understanding, besides the New Madrid situation, what it was that was pushing me to do this. And they already knew the area to go to and was enormously wiggy about going anywhere near a coast. But yeah, we're bugging out to the northern Arizona and New Mexico landscape, and we'll be doing that hopefully within the next 3 months.
Well, don't you think that what Conrad's saying, that the time to do your move to get to a safe area is now?
Oh, I agree 100%. If we had all our ducks in a row and vehicle situation squared away, we'd be on our way. But we've got things that got to get taken care of before we can split.
Well, Janet and I, you know, we've got this mountaintop, and it's going to be an island, and her father was a lobsterman. All of her siblings, all 8 of them, believe that or not, 8 of them are all lobstermen and women. And she's used to the ocean. She's worked on commercial fishing boats. And I grew up loving boats, loving the ocean. And my father went to a psychic when I was 6. And the first thing the psychic said to him, and he had a woolen sack tape recorder and tape recorded it and had his secretary type it up. And the first thing she said to him is, buy this boy a boat.
Yeah.
So then I went to another psychic while I was in law school in 1977. And she goes, you're going to live on an island. And that's my plan, is I'm hoping that this mountain becomes an island. That would be fine with me. And I love the ocean. I know exactly how dangerous it is and what to do about it and what to watch out for. And I know what to eat out of it and how to catch that. And so I'm looking forward to a hunter-gatherer adventure. And the thing is, by moving up here 30 years ago, there aren't that many people here in the middle of the Maine coast where I live. And, you know, the town is like 35 square miles with 800 people in it. But everyone is like a do-it-yourself kind of person. I mean, you would be hard put to find somebody, except for some of the recently moved in trust fund babies in their mega mansion, where the sewage gets pumped uphill. Except for those people, all the rest of them are like they're pretty much like me, and that's why I felt like I fit in right away. First of all, Maine is very open to all kinds of opinions, but second of all, I'm the kind of person that could fix anything or operate anything or maintain something, or if I didn't have it, build it from scratch. And I've developed a friendship with Conrad, and I find him to be the same exact way. And Janet and I have not been pursuing money. I guess there's a lot of things we could have done that would have brought in a lot of income, but we're living a low rent lifestyle, and I built this house in 4 days for $11,000, and we don't have a mortgage, so there's some good features to it. And we doused a well, and we've got 27 acres of blueberries. And, we'll be able to evaporate salt water and trade salt for things. Right. We can trade blueberries for things. We can dry blueberries, and they'll keep longer. I don't know that they'll keep through the winter, because they don't really have a source of something to put on them, like sulfur or something, which nobody really likes anyway. But anyway, we're doing the best we can. If I had a lot more money, I'd probably get a tractor trailer load of rebar. I'd get a tractor trailer load of Portland cement and pour it all into airtight brand new 5-gallon buckets and snap that lid on, and maybe it would last a lot longer, because they put holes in the bags of cement, so the cement only lasts about a year, and they know they're doing that.
Right.
And it's
planned obsolescence.
Yeah, exactly. But I would make ferro cement domes, and oh my God, teepees. If I had like a tractor trailer load of tarps, I could have like 2,000 people living in teepees up here. It'd be a lot of fun, and we could have a survival community. Right. And I'm hoping that I can convince Janet's family, which none of them believe a word I'm saying, to move up here when it becomes obvious what's to happen. But when these people show up, I either know them, and I know whether they're good, bad, or ugly. I mean, I know what to expect from them. And if I don't know them exactly, I know the ones that they're traveling with or going to be with. So I feel that, I've done what I can to get to know the people in my area and what to expect from them and how to motivate them. And I know when I start talking about tidal waves, I mean, most of them live below 150 feet in sea level. And you're talking about a 600-foot tidal surge. Not much is going to be left, but I'm going to have a field day with stuff that washed up on my south lawn, something you guys would never experience. I probably could spend 20 years just picking through stuff that's going to be washed into the woods.
Yeah. Gordon, we've got a caller on the line. Are you prepared?
Yeah, well, if Conrad's prepared, I mean, I hope it's something about what Conrad was saying.
Okay. Area code 817. You're on the whole agenda. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm Highlander. I'm calling from Fort Worth.
Welcome.
Good evening,
Thanks.
Sir.
Thanks, friends. I would really recommend that people start planting their own gardens in their backyards. Most of us have enough room to do that. Those that don't, they should find a common place and get city permission to start a garden someplace and raise some chickens, raise some pigs, and raise some pygmy goats or anything else. We really have to start thinking about when the money goes away, then what are we going to do to feed ourselves?
Right. Well, Gordon's got a great piece of advice for anyone considering how they're going to get by regardless the event or which scenario comes along. Gordon, you want to share that with him?
Yeah, I say just one day next week, don't eat anything from a store. Eat out of your yard, and you will have the best information possible over what is going on and what you need to face, what you need to learn. I mean, there are so many things that you wouldn't even think, like invasive Japanese bamboo, which is a horrible thing. You can't get rid of it. But in the spring, when the first sprouts come up a couple of inches tall, they taste just like asparagus with lemon sprinkled on top of it. It's amazing. And There's all kinds of things like that, like the bark of the willow tree contains aspirin. If somebody's in pain, you can make a tea from the inner bark of the willow tree. There's just so many things. Like skunk cabbage is disgusting. I mean, you wouldn't think, but the Indians always dug it up before it came up above the mud next to a stream. So they would go in April and stick their hands in the cold mud with the snow runoff water going by and find the tops of those the skunk cabbage and harvest that. So there's all kinds of things now. When you're in the desert, it's different. If you're in a colder area, then there's other places where there's snakes, which, as far as I know, every snake, including the most deadly ones in the world, are quite tasty. So alligators are tasty. You really have to look into what it is. And then, of course, you need the water. Where are you going to get clean water? Let's say that you don't buy anything from the store, and now you're thirsty. What are you going to do? What's your answer for that? So, what would you say, Conrad?
Yeah, I have kind of like an order of importance, and at the top of my list is focusing on your health first off.
Yeah, and what have you done about that?
Well, on a list of 10, the first 3 things are health. Number 1 item is write down everything you have, even your aches and pains, because you don't start to change anything until you get really specific about knowing where you're starting from. The second thing is your doctor, in other words, regular medicine. Whatever you're getting now for medications, you aren't going to have that after the Poleshift. It's just not going to be available. And even if you were to put a supply of it, lay in a supply, the problem is that changes. Regular medicine gets toxic after a while, and your doctor has to change it anyway. So you need to find alternatives to those medicines that you can get without a prescription. Like I take only one medication. It's for heart, because I had a heart operation about 5 years ago. And so I take this one pill, and I take the pill every other day, even though I get a 90-day supply. So half of what I get, I can save. But I also take hawthorn. Hawthorn is a heart medication that they've given to people for 2,000 years, and it's just it's a plant. You can take the berries and the leaves and smash them down and put some in your water and drink it down. So you want to find things that are alternative. And the third thing about health is there is a chart for every height, one for men, one for women, and then it goes by large, medium, and small body size, and it'll tell you what your ideal weight should be. People that are at their ideal weight have half of the medical problems that somebody that is very much heavier than their weight. If you have a tendency or have any type 2 diabetes, for instance, when you get down to your ideal weight, it goes away. As long as you're over your weight, it will hang on, and it'll get so bad at some point that you might end up losing the use of your feet to necropsy. So
yeah, well, I have a friend who did that. He had his stomach actually sewed up to be smaller, and he can only eat a tablespoon of food at a time. He lost almost 200 pounds, and his diabetes and his hypertension went away.
Yeah, exactly. I have a little bit of milder approach, and I've talked to Gordon about this, but I was 190 pounds. My ideal weight was 155 to 160. I weighed in this afternoon at 161, coming down from 190. And I take a berry, South American berry called Garcinia cambogia, and it helps dull your appetite, and I've lost weight.
Because of you, we bought that, and we're trying it, and I notice immediately if any medication has any adverse effect on me whatsoever. Now, the bottle says take 12 pills a day, and I'm following your advice and taking 1 pill a day. And what you said is that without changing anything, basically you're going to start losing weight. It's going to be a very gradual process, but you lose weight. And I love that pill because I don't feel anything. If I didn't take it, I wouldn't know the difference between taking it and not taking it. So I'm really anxious because we started this week. I'm really anxious to start weighing ourselves and see if we, because honestly, we got to the point where before we got in a small boat, we had to look at the panel to see what the weight limit was because we were going to buy a small aluminum boat, and we looked at the panel, and together, if we went out in the boat, it would have sunk. So, it's time to do something about that. Even though I'm a very large person, I'm large boned, and I'm 6 foot tall, 6'2". My wife is 6 feet; she's large boned, and so we're never going to be little shrimpies. But I really like your idea. Cambodia. What?
Yep. Okay. Yes, I did say stop. You've got a doctor now that's talking to you, and a doctor. Look up the lifespan on different. What do you call it? The different professions. Look up the lifespan. The doctors, they live the shortest lives, and yet we rely on them to tell us how to live healthy lives. I was a fitness trainer for 9 years. I'm not a fitness trainer anymore, and I'm not even fit anymore. But I'll tell you this, that drugs ruin people.
Oh, I believe that. You're singing to the choir here, because I absolutely believe that. I came to a conclusion, which I mentioned on my show before, when my wife died of cancer. I was married back in the 80s, and I came to the conclusion that you cannot be healthy unless you're happy, and you have to be happy with who you are, what you do, who you're with, and where you live. Now, there's other things to be happy about, but those 4 things right there kept me in total great health without ever going to a doctor, until all of a sudden I'm on Medicare, and they called me in and they go, well, you need a doctor. And I go, okay.
Well,
so I
when you need a doctor and you go to a doctor, you're going to a guy that's going to die at an average of 51 years old, when the rest of us live to 70, 78.
Of course.
So,
I realize that.
Why are we going to listen to a guy like that?
Well, no.
In the schooling for MD, they get almost zero nutrition training.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, and the nutrition training they do get, I mean, Conrad can tell you about nutritionists. They're just awful. I mean, you wouldn't go to one of those for any reason ever. I mean, it's a nightmare. But
well, I'm not claiming to be some type of what do you call it, a nutritionist or anything like that. I'm just telling you that I've used different diets and exercise implementations to have. I had clients that lost over 150 pounds, and what they were doing was just following basic common sense, and they weren't taking any medications. But every single time that we go to the hospital, or every single time that we get to the doctor's office, they're trying to prescribe us chemicals. So, answer that. Do you want to take a chemical to fix your problem?
Well, see, then they said, well, you haven't been to a doctor ever, as far as we can tell. We need baseline statistics on you. So now this is after 25 years of no medical care. I feel fine. I'm doing great. And they do the baseline. They take a blood sample and they measure 100 things. And you go right down the list, and every single thing they had a range of what was good. And I was smack dab in the middle of what was good, with no medical care. So, what you're saying is right. You have to develop a sense. You have to understand that there's only one atom difference between chlorophyll and hemoglobin. So if you want to feed your body something nutritional, eat something green. Grass, you can't swallow it, but you can chew it, get the chlorophyll out, and swallow the saliva and spit the fiber out. You can survive an amazing amount of time on just that. Let's say you're on the move, you're hiking, you're in Alabama, it's going to sink, and you're going to hike to South Dakota. you can eat grass along the way, but you can't swallow the grass. You have to chew on the grass, get the green out, swallow the saliva, and spit out the fiber. The fiber will kill you. You're not a cow. So, but you're so right. I mean, these doctors, it's just awful what they do. And then when you know what you want, something like antibiotics, then they won't give it to you, because you know, they have some rule that, you know, you're going to start a super disease, and it's just like they treat you like little idiots, and they don't know anything, and they won't admit it. And I go to doctors and I tell them what I want out of them, and they don't like that. They definitely don't like it.
I've done the same thing. The last time that I went to the doctor or to the clinic or whatever, then I said, "This is what I've got. This is what I need. I need a shot. I need steroids to fix the rest of it. I need a follow-up deal." And they gave it to me, and it worked perfect, because I've done it like 4 times already. So
you have to be in touch with yourself.
Yeah, but what type of authority do they have over us? I really think
I live at Maine. What's your first name again?
Highlander.
Highlander. Okay, I have a car named Highlander. Now listen, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. You're so right, and you know, but do you think we could let Conrad continue a little bit?
I'd love to, because these medical guys know that what they're doing has been wrong for 60 years. They've been doing wrong, and Conrad is speaking out about how he's exposing them, and that's dangerous. And he's stepping out there and he's telling the truth. So Conrad, please continue.
Yeah, my doctor is Middle Eastern by his cultural heritage, and he's really well educated in standard medicine. If you ask him about aloe vera or anything that's natural, he just flat out tells you he has no idea, because he wasn't trained in it. So at least he's honest, and I know where he stands. And it's gotten to where I only take one medication every other day. So and that I could trail off and just take hawthorn berry and not even eat that. So I think the key there is being your own physician and reading. You first make a list of what you have, and then that's where you do your reading, and you find out what works, what has worked for other people. So being in charge yourself, I think, is a big key, and I think you're exactly right on that. And then the next thing after health is, I think after Poleshift, we're going to be living in what's most similar to the year 1850. What people did in the year 1850 was kind of, most people still lived in cities, by the way, but there were people that lived in the West, you know, and they were living out in the middle of nowhere. But there wasn't the things that we have now that we depend on. So the thing is, can you actually survive without electricity if you have to, and no refrigeration, and growing your own food? And that means you have to have some stored food too. What I'm doing right now is drying all the excess produce that I can grow and dehydrating it and putting it in vacuum bags. And it's got a shelf life of from 5 to 10 years, depending what it is, and that will get you through until you can grow more. So you have to think of your food plan. And with an important part about food is water. You have to have a means to distill surface water if that's all you have available, or seawater if you live near the ocean, or lake water or river water. So if it's the last time we had a Poleshift was the Jewish Exodus, and if you read the textbooks from the time, they say the red iron oxide turned the waters bitter and you couldn't drink it, you would get sick. But you can take that water and simply with a wood fire and a copper coil and a pot, you can distill water very, very easily and maybe even stay warm in the process if it's cool. But if you can distill water, you can make easily 5 gallons a day, at least a gallon a day per person. So distilling water is a big key. And then...
May I please interject, Doctor?
Sure,
Please?
go ahead. Yep.
Okay. What the doctor is saying is ridiculously important to my friends on this chat. And what he's saying is that if you're not getting clean water, then you're getting your brain fried. And you are. And you've been getting your brain fried for probably 30, 40 years. So please get a freaking water filter. I don't care what kind of water filter you've got. We're not trying to sell water filters on this channel, are we, Doctor? Doctor? Are we trying to sell water filters?
No, we're not. We're not trying to sell anything as far as I know.
Jeez, get yourself a water filter and get the fluoride and the chlorine and the glyphosate out of your water filter, please.
Yeah,
get it out of your water. Get it out of your
Don't leave water in a plastic bottle out in the sun, because the water becomes poisoned with the chemicals that made the plastic.
And when you buy it in the plastic, then you've got the BPA. So the whole thing is, the first thing that you have to do, if you're going to be I hate to classify it this way. If you're going to be a prepper, if you're going to try to protect yourself and your children and your family and your home, then go get a water filter first.
Right. Well, I've told people that you can burn wood and make your own charcoal, and you can sift sand and you can get and wash it, and you can have a really clean charcoal sand filter that you can replace when you need to. And that way, because look, the stores are going to disappear. People aren't going to be able to run out and get water filters. Now they've got nothing to drink, and they look at it and it's disgusting water. Well, one thing is they can put silver bars in it and let this colloidal silver develop, and that would sterilize it somewhat. But you can filter it through sand and charcoal and take out all that stuff. Now, I myself have never drunk fluoride water, but I was in a city where they just chlorinated the hell out of it because they were taking swamp water, but then they drilled artesian wells and that stopped. But I had about 5 or 6 years of heavily chlorinated water. If you left it, you would notice a sediment of flakes, white flakes in the morning of what had settled out from all the chlorine in the swamp water. It was really awful. And we used to go to a spring by the side of the road, which, of course, the state closed because that's unsafe. And that's where we would bring bottles and fill it from the spring, and that's what we would drink for coffee and for cooking and stuff like that. So what you're saying is extremely important. Especially if you're going to be on the West Coast, you're going to have all the heavy metals from the volcanoes in British Columbia and Washington and Oregon blowing across California. Now, there won't be much left of California. It'll be the California Islands, but there are a lot of people out there on the West Coast, and they're going to be crowded into these mountaintops, and they're not going to have anything good to drink because they're going to have a constant shower of heavy metals in the volcanic ash. So, and then you've got, the other dysentery and cholera from, fecal bacteria in the water and all kinds of other dead animals. God knows what's in the water. So it's the water. Obviously, you can only live 3 days without water. So water has to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, the reason.
I'm not trying to. Pardon me, host. Yeah, please go ahead.
The reason I'm talking about distilling water because there's water filters are good for different types of water, but they basically won't really take out iron or lead, which is what's going to be coming from volcanoes and falling from the planet X's tail. So all the surface water, you're going to have to get a lot of iron out of in order to make it drinkable. And that's where a filter will plug on any kind of filter, or it lets it through. However, if you simply distill the water, it takes all of that out, and it's perfectly drinkable water. So it's not very difficult technology to put together, a pot with a fire underneath it and some tubing, stainless steel tubing. You can even use PEX tubing. If the first foot or two is metal tubing, then you can go to the PEX tubing, and it'll do the same job on it. It doesn't add anything to the water like plastic bottles do. So
well, no, I've got huge forests all around me, so I'm never going to run out of firewood. So that's an excellent plan for me. For people who are in the desert or a dry climate, it's going to be a little more problematical because they're going to require a lot of fuel.
No, use a solar distiller. There's plenty of plans on the internet in YouTube.
Yeah.
So sunshine, but it's going to be not always sunny. It'll be raining a lot too. So having a dry wood and dry fire, each area is different. I picked North Dakota because it had the best safe locations, and it matched up with my chart. So that's why I ended up here. Now, the other thing is, in 1850, they used hand tools. Hand tools will always work where there's no electricity.
No, I always say it's the Amish and the Shakers. If you can live like them, that's like the year 1825, 1850. The Amish and the Shakers. If you can see what they're doing and how they do it, that's the way to live.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the best people to learn from because they're already doing it. It sometimes takes a little time to get up to that level, but you can do an awful lot with a few hand tools. And if your battery drill you're able to charge it, then that's so much the better, But you might not be able to run your skill saw. Who knows? But I'm going to...
People don't realize that that all direct current motors, if you put electricity to them, they turn. But if you turn them, they output electricity. So you can actually take a battery drill and hook it up to a bicycle. And when you pedal, you will be generating whatever it is, 18 volts, which you can use to charge the other cordless drills that you have. So there are a lot of creative ways to do things that people wouldn't normally think of. But, if you just remember that all direct current motors, if you put electricity to them, they turn. And if you don't have any electricity and you turn it, then it will output electricity.
Yeah, I've got one of those big reels that the cable company left when they put in fiber optic cable. And I'm just putting pieces of flat metal on the outside of the spokes. And then when the wind comes, it's a vertical, it turns vertically on a vertical axis as opposed to like the old prairie windmills, which turned on a horizontal axis. So then you just need some belts or a bicycle chain, and then that runs your electric drill or your alternator, whatever you want to run, and keeps batteries charged, basically. And that runs the rest of it. LED lights use so little power that they're the way to go for lighting. I've changed most of the lighting in my house to LED lighting. Just even on 110 volts, they use 7 watts and put out as much light as the 60-watt bulb.
Well, I've always gone to the post-Christmas sale and bought as many LED lights as I had money to purchase because of that exact reason. And I can't tell you how many times I've mounted bicycle wheels on axles like a weather vane, so it always points into the wind. It has a tail that points it into the wind, and I put aluminum flashing and crimped it over the spokes of the wheel, and you would not believe the power that has in the wind to turn.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff you can do. I'm putting my post lights around the front of the house are solar lights. They charge up from the sun, but I'm having them trigger by sound because if a car goes by, they come on. If the dog barks, it goes on. If somebody's hanging out by the fence talking, they come on. Or if you come home and you want all the lights on, all you can do is toot the horn on the car, and it lights up like a Christmas tree.
Well, but let's let all the listeners know that you're a little electronic genius and you made your own circuit boards to do that. Most people aren't going to be able to do that.
No, I get all those circuits off just a Google. If I want to build something, I do a Google. It's a circuit oscillator, and it'll come up. I don't really design these any longer. I get them right off the internet. And they YouTube videos show you how to actually solder or make stuff. And most of these circuit boards you can buy already made. There's electronic stores that sell you the circuit boards. And an LED light, post light, you get them, they already work. You stick them in those little things you stick in the ground and the charge during the day and they come on a light. All I'm doing is just adding a little relay in there with a microphone.
See, I'm thinking to house the most people that they would all go in teams, go cut and strip 35-foot spruce trees and make a teepee. A teepee takes 23 poles. We cover it with tarps, and we build a fire pit in the center, and we dig a trench and put a stovepipe to the outside. So when the fire needs more air, it doesn't draw it in and chill you. Instead, it draws the air through the floor from the outside. But that's a really efficient way. But then for lighting, I mean, I've been in Indian teepees with Native Americans, and they have put a lot of big logs on there and let them create coals, and there's quite an infrared glow, and then everybody sleeps in a circle on a cot that they made out of trees or branches, and maybe put old rugs on it, and then you put your sleeping bag on there and you get a good night's sleep. But if somebody wants to read something, they keep a little pile of twigs, and you just throw a twig on the fire and it flames up, and then all of a sudden the whole room is completely lit up, just as if you had a light bulb, except that you have this unlimited supply of wood. Even out in the desert, there's mesquite and all these other things, and you could just keep a pile of them, you throw them on the fire, and all of a sudden you have a lot of light. You can be doing things after dinner. You could be sewing something or building something or carving something or tying a fish net or, all these things that are going to have to be done because you won't be able to buy them. But what I find interesting about you, because I've gotten to know you, Conrad, is that you live in one of the most idiotic backward towns I've ever heard of. They won't let you have chickens, right?
Yeah, I had to kill my chickens, so we ate the chickens.
That's sad. And what's the problem with these people there in the middle of North Dakota?
They're local, and they only like local.
Well,
they've been to a school system for 12 years that started teaching Common Core, dumbing down education in 1962. So everybody in town that's local, unquote, suffers from it. And
so you couldn't have chickens. You probably couldn't have ducks. You probably couldn't have pigs. What can you have if you wanted to have animals?
Actually, I think I got them in every turn because they've been dumbed down in my school. Luckily, didn't do that. I'm kind of ahead of the queue. But you can have quail. Quail eggs are half as big as chicken eggs. They're just as good. And they're considered a like a parakeet. You can have them. They're not a farm animal. Also, you can have hamsters. They're pets, and so are rabbits. So you can raise rabbits. And
I don't know about eating hamsters. I'm sure you can eat them, but I really don't know if I'd want to.
I'm planning to raise guinea pigs. They're just like little tiny, those little pigs that people raise for food or pets. Yeah. Well, guinea pigs are just another pig. And then tilapia in a tank, and then you have fresh fish. And then
that's right. You are planning a tilapia farm inside your building. So tell me about that.
Well, it's an A-frame. It's 24 by 24 on the floor. Has an upstairs and a downstairs. And so on the downstairs, I'm going to have a red plastic tank with tilapia in it. And then the water from the tilapia you run with a little DC pump to the plants, and so that nourishes your plants. So the plants filter the water, and then it goes back to the fish. So it's called aquaponics, and you can load
aquaculture.
Aquaponics, yeah, it's like hydroponics, growing plants, And the aquaponics is using fish.
Now, where do you get baby tilapia? And once you have tilapia and you've eaten them all, where do you get more baby tilapia? How do you raise them?
They make like 10,000 babies at a time. You have too many, actually.
Would you
fish have
squeeze,
roe, which is eggs.
right? Would you squeeze the eggs out of the female and then put the male?
I let the females do that themselves. I'm not kinky in that way at all.
So in this tank, you're going to have baby fish of all ages swimming with bigger ones.
Well, yeah. So you got to have like a kind of like a little floating thing in there. You can look on YouTube videos and see how to do it. And the little fish can hide in there. They're very good at staying, not getting eaten. And so then they'll grow bigger.
They would be cannibalistic, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they'll eat their babies because, they're fish. That's what they'll do. But they never get them all, So
where do you what do you feed the tilapia so that they're not eating all the babies?
Well, there's these little plants, I think you get it powdered, that grows in water. There's two or three different kinds of plants that grow in the water.
Like chlorella.
Chlorella, I think. Yeah, there's several kinds, and then you can feed them food scraps. You can feed them grass cuttings. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that they'll eat some of.
So they eat a ubiquitous diet. Whatever comes their way, they'll eat it.
Yeah, pretty much. And of course, this is where I'm still on a learning curve to get the fish going. But this is something that I want to do during the non-growing season. When I get past the fall season and I've harvested, then that's why I'm going to be doing the birds and the fish.
Based on all you know, you and I are agreeing that there's a great possibility that the Poleshift might come as early as next April.
Yeah, I think spring is what it looks like to me. It feels that way. I got this gut feel.
And so are you going to have the tilapia tanks let's say you got to have that set up pretty soon, don't you, to be able to find out what goes wrong and what goes right?
Yeah, I'm collecting parts, and the tilapia you send for, they come to the post office. They ship them in a plastic bag. There's little plants in there, and they survive fine apparently. So you can go on. I had a friend that was
in the tropical fish business, and I saw how fish get shipped from all over the world in the post office or FedEx, or sometimes they'd go down to Kennedy Airport and pick up the fish in these styrofoam containers, and then you'd open that up and there'd be a plastic bag, just like you say. And, they had to get them right away. They couldn't leave them in there very long, but they'd get them, bring them home, and they'd be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
We hung out with a guy in St. Louis who has an aquaponic fully running setup, and they produce far more than they can even eat, both vegetables and tilapia. I mean, it basically takes care of itself once you get the system up and running and have the pH correct and all. I mean, it's really, really not that difficult.
Yeah, and it's organic. You're not eating any chemicals.
Another thing that you've done, Conrad, you've mentioned it several times, but the listeners should really try this. It has gotten to the point where everything you would ever hope to learn or wish to learn is on a YouTube video. And if you do a search, you find these things and you watch the video. And I mean, I was doing a repair on my Ford diesel truck, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And I watched the video, and there it was. It was just like, oh, this is a whole new world. I don't even need to ask anybody. I can just go look it up on Google and find it on YouTube and watch it. And there it is. Somebody has taken exactly what I wanted to know and put it in a video. And there's so many videos now that there's really not any excuse for not diving right into these subjects. And I know from talking to you, Conrad, that you do an awful lot of that for just about everything.
Yeah, every time I start or I'm about to do something, maybe I've done it before or maybe I haven't, but if some of the things that I do I haven't done for 20 years, let's say, and you can just watch a YouTube video and then it's like you're totally current with the tech.
Right.
taking apart the throttle body on my Buick. You know, I can go watch a video and I know exactly what to tweak and do it in the least amount of time. And I did spend a day the other day organizing all my automotive and wrenches on a set of metal shelves.
Well, that's very important. You have the tools to do almost everything, pretty much, and so do I. And to us, that's extremely important, because there's so many times when I bring stuff home from the dump. Sometimes Janet complains that we bring more stuff home from the dump than we put in there, but we're throwing garbage away, which, by the way, here in Maine they burn. But I'll bring home metal, and then I'll need a part for something, and I'm thinking, do I drive 7 miles to the hardware store and spend money, or can I find it? And I have all these little things that I brought back from the metal scrap pile at the dump, which the dump people do not like me to dump pick. Now they know if I go to the dump and they see me that I'm probably going to go over to the metal pile. But let me tell you, I'll grab something, put it in the car, and drive off before they come over and tell me that I can't have it. So I've gotten so many times I've needed something, and I have it right there in front of me, because I guess I just have an intuition about what I might need for what I'm doing, and I'm familiar with what breaks and what has a problem and how would I fix it. And so I've got these like spare parts, but they could be used for a lot of different things. But when you need something right now and you have to fix it, you can go find it. And you've done a lot of that. I hear you've got a total collection of stuff that would just blow people's minds.
Yeah, we when we first came back from Phoenix, you know, where we had a business, when we got back here, my shed had been broken into, and anything worthwhile was gone. So we went down to there's a local metals yard here, where basically nobody supervises it. You can just pick up anything or drop anything off. So I got 2 or 3 things of what I needed. People throw things away here when they stop working, and they don't fix them. They just go buy another one. So you buy 3 broken ones of what you want, say a shredder, and then you put the best pieces together, and you got a whole operating tool. You keep a couple of spare parts and take the other 2 back to the dump and dump them off and get something else. So I basically put my tools together in that fashion.
To explain that, you use shredded newspapers as compost, don't you?
Well, yeah. When you ever buy a property, usually it's been made into lawns. So the lawn is a pretty neutral crop. The energy you put in is about what you get out of it, and you don't have anything left. So what we do is we put down paper, like newspapers, several layers of sheets. Then over that we put cardboard, so that no grass can grow up. There's fabric that you can buy that does that, but it never goes away, and it's at some point you got to rip it up, and it's a big pain in the neck. But paper and cardboard turn back into soil after a while, and you never have to pull it up. Then we put our potting soil on top of that, and we plant. And so we turn lawns instantly into gardens, without having to run a rototiller or a tractor or doing any of that labor intensive. I cut the grass with my lawnmower, put down paper and cardboard, and then spread dirt on it.
Well, we use a lot of newspaper to start fires during the summer, because we don't have a fire all day long, and we have a really big wood stove, and that's how we get hot water, and that's how we have heat. And like 2 weeks ago it was 46 every night, and now it's like 51 every night. So okay, it's gradually getting warmer, but still, you want to keep warm. So then we found out that the newspaper has a route where they take back all the unsold newspapers, and they have truckloads of newspapers that they bind up into bundles, or else sometimes they don't bind them up at all. They throw them away, and we went and we got them. And so we've got tons and tons of newspaper put aside. So, these are things that you can do, that you have the things that you need, Well, I guess that's it. And thank you so much, Conrad. And thank you, Swami.
You're welcome.
And we'll be back next week.